It's no secret that Nintendo and Sega's beef is one of the most famous in entertainment history, with the two going at it with use of the mascots Mario and Sonic. I mean, look at this stuff. Nintendo, that's genius. Pretty good rebuttal, pretty good rebuttal. Stacking up the libraries, I like that, I like that. Ooh, comparing.
Y'all stay tuned, Yeah,
What's the deal?
yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Ain't
What's
no
up?
yeah, get that nigga out of here.
But we've since seen that battle swell down over the years, with Sega discontinuing console manufacturing and putting their games on Nintendo consoles, and the two mascots crossing over for the occasional brawl or a game of badminton. But now that feud can come back in another form, with the Sonic the Hedgehog films finding great success and the Super Mario Bros. Movie coming out very soon with anticipation. Now, adaptations are always a tricky slope. You can either change things up a lot from the source material and potentially alienate fans of the original, or you can stick pretty close to the source. Now, just because the adaptation follows the original close to a T doesn't make it better than an adaptation that doesn't. It's all about retaining a certain feeling that you receive, but in a new light from new storytellers who were inspired by that feeling. How does it tie into Mario and Sonic? Well, I've been a fan of both of these franchises since I was very young. I paid the price. And as an adult, seeing them realize into a medium I'm much more well versed in, I can look at these movies coming out and distinctly point out the difference. While I like the Sonic movies for what they are, there's that feeling that the Mario movie gives me without even being out that the Sonic ones just don't. And as of the video being recorded, the Mario movie is not out yet, and it's very possible that I can end up preferring Sonic. But like I said, it can be a better adaptation while being an inferior movie. I think it's important to note that this isn't Mario's first time on the big screen. I have another video talking about that movie you can click right here to see. It was an interesting interpretation to say the least, but it wasn't a very good adaptation. And it stopped Nintendo from doing this kind of thing until now. So going into Mario 2023, Nintendo probably had a tight grip on making sure not too many liberties are taken, but it seems like a healthy collaboration so far. Illumination's Mario feels like it's taking from the material and making something faithful, but also different enough to make it stand out. The Mushroom Kingdom is a lot more lived in, with the marketplace and Peach's castle being atop a huge mountain, not to mention on the floating landscapes as the cherry on top. Meanwhile, I feel even though it's full of Easter eggs and nods, the Sonic movies aren't really interested in trying to do anything with the actual vibe of the games, pulling from multiple sources and popping them into a real world setting with new human characters for the audience to latch onto. This is especially the case with the first film, with Sonic and Eggman being the only things pulled for the source outside a brief appearance from Green Hill and Mushroom Hill. This did receive criticism, and I do believe that they improved on this in the sequel. Plus, this is the first theatrical Sonic adaptation, so I do think playing it safe was a good choice for Paramount. It's worth another thing to mention that even with the games alone, Mario's a franchise loved by all. There's rarely a bad game, and even non-gamers will take you up for an occasional kart or party match. Sonic, though, is much more infamous, with a fan base constantly divided on games, an entire section of the timeline being called the Dark Era, and constant backlash on the internet. Sonic might be as popular as Mario, but he is not as loved, sadly. Doing a sincere Sonic movie will not get the same reception as doing a sincere Mario movie. You have to try and earn people's respect with Sonic. With Mario, you already got it. I think in order for both of these franchises to be adapted correctly, you need the heart and a sense of adventure. Mario games feel grand because it has that sense of pushing forward to go through new lands so you can reach the end goal. It's non-stop going and going. And Sonic is a similar vibe. The guy says it himself.
What are you anyway?
Who the fuck mixed this audio? It's also all in the music with Sonic, the feeling of freedom and going anywhere you want, chasing that thrill, that adventure. The Sonic movies have a sense of adventure, but something still feels off. Sonic's characterization doesn't have that edge to him, that independence and free will. It's even in the music. The Mario clip from the Game Awards is filled to the brim with music from the games, but recreated in a much more cinematic way to complement the new medium. Meanwhile, in the Sonic movies, the score is by far the weakest link, lacking that feeling of adventure that's given to us by the soundtrack in the games. Hell, there's a scene that straight up takes music from Ant-Man and the Wasp of all things. What the hell?
What?
Music is a huge part of Sonic since the very beginning, even more so than Mario. It's the one constant in the franchise that fans and even non-fans agree is always strong. So to have such a lack of care in that department for the movies is just sad, and this is a big chunk of what makes Sonic Sonic. Also, it's a lot less hard to get that free feeling from the Sonic films when the status quo has changed and Sonic and friends living with the Wachowskis. In other adaptations like Sonic Boom, the gang resides in a village and it works for that type of story they're telling, but the big difference in the movie universe, they're kind of narratively on a leash, with Sonic essentially having parents trying to keep him out of trouble. This isn't a bad thing, however, as it does give Sonic a bit of pushback at his freedom to learn about responsibility, but it is a very drastic change from the games. And I do get it, the Sonic movies are live action films with animated elements. Usually when movies like these are made, we're introduced to a human character to give the audience someone to latch to. Sometimes it's a given like Alvin and the Chipmunks, and sometimes it's the Smurfs.
La la la.
Unless they want to make an entirely animated movie, these movies need Tom and Maddie. And I actually quite like their inclusion here, and they managed to make the movies have a lot more heart. Sonic also does this with humans in the games, mostly in the adventure era, with the modern era starting with colors straying away from that. Also, Sonic X is another form of Sonic media that deals with humans, and while I haven't seen all of it, it's enough proof that this isn't a new concept or even what I'm against. If anything, Sonic 2 got flack from critics for not having enough time with the humans. The second movie is in general a whole lot more fantastical in scale. Take a look at the final showdown in both of these films. The sequel definitely felt like it was taking more liberties to feel more grand, but there's still a whole lot of Sonic that can be added. The scene where the Johnny music from the games play or the one where Sonic snowboards down like Ice Cap Zone is cute, but it's still small potatoes when you're comparing to something like Mario. That movie being fully animated plus the main characters being either human or humanoid allows for all the quirky Marioisms to be at full display and not feel weird. And there is a seemingly overhaul of Peach's personality and Mario being a whole lot less capable, which I can forgive for it being an origin story. So I'm not saying these things 1-1 with the games, but I feel like it's taking what the games gave us, filling in the gaps and creating something that feels different enough to be its own thing while not having a completely different vibe. This seems like Nintendo knowing what went wrong with the 1993 film and course correcting. Sonic on the other hand, just feels like it's not all too invested on adapting elements from the game outside of small moments and the characters. And while it's not a bad adaptation and I think Sonic 2 is pushing the series in the right direction, I think the Mario movie's anticipation and potential start of sequels for the franchise could give Paramount that push. Video game adaptations have only recently been accepted by the public after years of failed attempts, and books, plays, and comic books being the only ones to really gain critical acclaim on the big screen. So if anything, we're just lucky to have these two video game icons on screen in the era where people can go to see a video game brought to a different medium and not have to worry about things being butchered. I guess you could say nowadays Sega doesn't do what Nintendo do, or Nintendo does what Sega do not, or Illumination does what Para won't. If you like and subscribe to the video, I'll never do that again.
Eu disse por nosso amor. Eu disse B, brandosa e